Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Matt Chat. We're brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and sponsored by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Got to talk to this guy this past weekend in Coralville. He stopped big timing me and came on the show. Welcome back, Mike Poeta, new coach, University of Illinois. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you, Dave. I would never big time you. I actually consider myself little time compared to you. And there's no better pleasure than going to tournaments and seeing you and chatting with you.
You were a little time for sure before I lost 50 pounds. There's a big difference. I still got a few to go, but it's better. So I want to ask you, hopefully, a couple questions nobody has asked you yet. Okay. So first of all, tell me about the interview process. I mean, most of us have never gone through something like that at that high of a level. What is the process like?
Well, it came on pretty quick from finding out when Hef was going to retire. It was 2 interviews a week apart and a dinner with the AD and some administration. And I think even the dinner was obviously part of the interview process, just seeing how you are socially. And like the administrators and the AD, I know all these guys. I've known them for a while, but I don't like really know them. We've never kind of taken a deep dive into each other. And so it was just to go beyond seeing each other in the hallway and saying, how you doing? What's going on? And a couple sentences. Now it was, all right, let's really, really get to know each other. So, I mean, mine was a little unique because I've been here. So one was getting to know each other a little bit better. And then the second one was, all right, let's sit down. I rolled up my sleeves and said, this is my vision of this program. This is how I'm going to take us from great to elite. It's A, B, C, D, E. And I believe this.
It's almost like you're working with somebody every day and then you decide to ask them out, right? Like you're about to jump levels, right? Like, so stuff that didn't matter matters now, right? Like whether or not you were good at fundraising maybe it wasn't as important. Now it is. Whether or not you're good at public speaking, you're now the face of the program. You know, those kind of things, stuff that didn't matter is critical, you know, and that's, you know, that you obviously had to maybe just clear a new bar, so to speak, you know?
Absolutely. You're right on with that. It's, and to be honest, it's everything that I had to portray to them. I feel like I'm already doing, and I do have confidence behind it. There are a lot of things that the head coach is going to have to do that not many people like would kind of want to do it, but it's part of this role, and I love doing this job. And so there's some things as far as fundraising and certain aspects of it that you just kind of have to suck it up and do it and learn to love it and get better at it. And I just had to really express to them, guys, these areas that are going to be different from me being the assistant coach to being the head coach, I can do it. And this is how I'm going to do it. And this is actually how I'm going to do it better.
Yeah. And like I coached with my dad for a lot of years and he loves coaching. He's not a big fan of doing all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And he reminds me a lot of Hef. Like if I had a son, obviously I felt like my dad did a great job with me, but hundreds of other guys, I saw Hef when he came in with you and Hunter, and you could see the sincerity in his presentation. I think any young man would be lucky to be mentored by Hef. At the same time, if you're not going to raise money, if you're not going to be super enthusiastic with recruiting, if you're not going to do some of these other things, it's going to be hard to be elite. And you know, that I took that part over from my dad. I know you've done a lot of that for Hef, and that's kind of how those programs jump levels, because somebody's doing that. The most fun part of coaching is the 2.5, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Like it's the other 21 hours you worry about, you know? So what were your mood and emotions like when, like, it's like, you know, because I'm sure you're like, you know, Twitter and message boards and everybody's like, well, this guy's going to get it, this guy's going to be like, I know everybody's like, control the controllables and just do your thing, but how hard is it to be that rational?
To be honest, I didn't look at it. And there's reasons behind it. Because one, I can't have a big enough ego to think that everyone would just want me or think I'm going to do a great job. There's people in Illinois that probably potentially think they made the wrong choice. And there's probably people who are really happy and think they made a great choice. And so it's my job and my duty to prove to everyone that they made the right choice. So I really stayed away from it. I didn't want any outsider's opinion to kind of affect me. And kind of, but getting back to what you were saying about with yourself and your dad.
Yeah.
I think one thing that parents felt really comfortable with on recruiting trips is when they did get 2 full days with Hef. I think they really felt like, all right, I'm giving my kid up to someone who is going to treat them like their son, just like we do. And so we know that our son is going to be in such good hands. So that aspect did go a really long way, because there's like, really, I do not know a person where it's like, he will take the shirt off his back for you, that resonates more for Hef. I mean, that is who he is. He's like, he's amazing. So I think that really came across through those 48 hours when people were on campus. And then, like, same with like the roles that we were talking about, more public speaking, more relationships with some donors, and more social events. Like, Jeremy Hunter is so content with what you said, the 3 to 4 hours running practice, individual stuff with guys, putting them through different workouts. And I don't know if I've ever seen someone better at that with guys.
I heard he's amazing at film too.
He, like, Jeremy, like, strategy wise is so good. Like, I can't even believe he'll walk out and, for example, it's like, I don't want to give away too much, but let's say Zane Richards wrestling Seth Gross. Okay. And Jeremy said one thing. He said, do this when he does this. And I'm not joking. In the first 30 seconds, Zane scored off it, or got one or something. And yeah. I'm like, God, like, I wish I could literally see stuff like
my
Jeremy.
Dad's like that. And those guys, you actually just want them to stay in that lane because they're so good at it. You want them to put all their energy there.
No, absolutely. He's so good at it. That's right in his wheelhouse. Keep him there. And like with this job, like a lot, like people did say, like, is Hunter going to want it? Is Poeta going to want it? Hunter's older. Jeremy was so content with, Mike, you kind of take the reins with this. And I love where I'm at. I don't want to be the head coach. And Jeremy and I kind of discussed like staff while this was happening. And I told Jeremy, if he didn't want to stay, I was going to beg him to stay. Like, if you coached me, I'm a little bit younger. It potentially could be awkward at first. Jeremy and I are great friends. And as assistants, we work so well together, but I didn't want like any like tension or animosity, because the roles definitely switched kind of big.
Yeah. You're his boss now.
Exactly. And, yeah. But I wanted Jeremy to know that I will beg you to stay if you for some reason don't want to be in on this. But he was all on board. He wants to stay. He loves the program, loves the kids. So it all fell into place.
It's really smart of you to understand that there is potential, like tension there. Like, not too many people are good at taking orders from people that are younger than them. I mean, like, some of us are like, like with technology, right? Like, we all kind of listen to somebody younger than us, but there's other stuff like with wrestling.
Brian Medlin yesterday about copying and pasting something in Excel.
See, I can help him with that. Grant Turner was killing me the other day about my font size. So he said I had to turn it sideways. He said a small TV I'm walking around with. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Why it was brutal is accurate. Like, it was just being mean-spirited if it wasn't true, but it was actually true. But, to go back, it is tough, right? And like, my dad gave me some free rein, like with recruiting. I'd say, Dad, we need to give this guy this much. And he never questioned me ever. And nobody in recruiting bats 1,000, right? Like, there's kids, like we talked about a kid off air that you're high on. There's probably another kid you've been high on at some point that didn't work out. There's probably some kid that you recruited just because you needed depth that ended up being way better than you thought they were. Like, that's just the nature of recruiting. If we could all predict how 18-year-olds are going to turn out when they're 23, none of us would have to work for a living, so it's awesome. I was going to ask you about that, but you answered it ahead of time. I always sensed you and Hunter got along really well. Like, I would see you guys at tournaments, and like, you're the more playful one, but you guys are always joking around with each other. And, it's a cool relationship from the outside looking in.
For sure. So like when I wrestled here, he was my coach. And then coming back 4 years ago, again, like it was the kind of the same as now. Like, I wonder how it's going to be, just kind of us being like more on an equal playing field and both being the assistant coaches. And like, not that I didn't think we were going to hit it off, but we actually, Hunter and I developed a relationship that was way closer than I thought coming in. And him and I have been like this for the past 4 years. And I'm hoping that nothing ever changes, because one, he's so valuable. So I'll do everything to make sure that it stays consistent.
Well, kids naturally gravitate towards certain personalities and stuff like that. And like, there were kids that wanted my dad in their corner every time. There's other kids that would prefer to have me, just like, and I'm much more animated, I think, like you are. And Hunter's a lot more like my father, which probably both means we need to be better people. But it's good that you guys don't have everybody that's exactly alike, I think, because then maybe one day a kid feels like talking to you about something that they didn't talk to Jeremy about, or vice versa. That's the easiest way to nip problems in the bud too. Like, hey, I'm struggling in this class, or my girlfriend and I are fighting, or whatever the case may be. This teacher has it in for me, whatever the case may be, that kind of stuff. I looked this up ahead of time to make sure. Heffernan was there 29 years, 13 top 10 finishes, 73 All-Americans, and 11 champions.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, give or take, not for the national champions. I know that number is right, but give or take a couple for the All-Americans. But it's right in the ballpark.
There might be a few more. I pulled it off Illinois' website, so if they didn't update it for this past year, then they shorted them a couple. So, but I think excellence is just, like whether it's 73 or 76, it's a super good number. We've talked about him as a person, but when you think about him, what's his legacy at Illinois?
Well, I think it goes back to kind of the things I was saying, but like his integrity. I mean, Jim Heffernan did every single thing right, and everything he put every kid before the program. So even at times where, and it's easy for me it was easier for me saying, Hef, we got to get rid of this kid. We got to get rid of this kid. But he knew how valuable, him staying behind him and him giving him that extra chance or two would be towards that kid's life.
Yeah.
That he put the kid before the program, and it's like every parent would kind of want that. It was like as if most kids have two people in their life that want them to succeed more than anything, and it's their parent. And I think Hev was like right there with them. And as coaches, you're part of that next 4 or 5 people who want that particular kid to succeed more than anything. And I'm telling you, Hef was like at that parent level for every single kid. So I told this story a couple times where there was a kid who just had one too many chances on our team, and Hef had to let him go. But Hef never gave up on any kid. It was just because they weren't on our team didn't make a difference to him. He was still on him on a daily basis. And when Hef retired, I've said this 10 times, and I get emotional every time I say this. I'm getting goosebumps right now. But Hef showed me a text from the kid that said, Coach Hef, if it weren't for you, I would have never graduated. I'm walking May 5th. You better be there. And he showed it to me. And I'm honestly, I'm crying when I see this, because, and I think there's a lot of things that sum him up, and that's it. He never gave up on a kid. If a kid potentially wasn't on our team anymore, that didn't make a difference.
Guys like him, guys like my dad, these old school guys with a ton of integrity, they remember what's really important. And what's really important is that kid graduated, and that kid could have gone in a completely different direction. I mean, we coach junior college, which, there's a ton of at-risk kids there, right? Like if they did everything right and had a lot of money, they didn't go to junior college to begin with. If they were a great wrestler, great student, had enough money. So they were there for us because they were disadvantaged in some way, maybe their own doing, maybe circumstances. And I was like you, like, we got to win. We got to win. We got to win. This kid doesn't want to do the right thing. I always tell people, I go, when you're 15, your parents are the stupidest people in the world. And by the time you're 25, they're the smartest people in the world. And they didn't change. You did. And Hef just reminds me of, probably the biggest compliment I can give him is he reminds me of my dad.
That's
so
really special. And honestly, what you just said, literally Hef has told me that saying about 15 years old and 25 years old. I've heard that come out of his mouth a lot.
That's good. I mean, it means I'm doing one thing right.
Yeah, you're growing up.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. I'm just out here bumbling along, trying to do my best. So, I saw the video where you talked to the team, where you got announced and you walked right in right before practice, and you said you guys are going to win Big Ten and NCAA titles. I think we all know, like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I know we've talked a lot about what Hef did great, and you had that program at a good level. What do you have to change to make it elite?
Well, I think we need to bring in more youth in the coaching staff, and I think we need to attack this more than we had previously. I am a firm believer in sports psychology, visualization, meditation, all that stuff, and I just like that I can have free reign and more control of making that a more consistent part of our training. And it's insanely important. I wish I would have done more of that or bought into it more when I was competing, because I know I would have had more success. So I think attacking between the ears more and just bringing more youth to the coaching staff.
You mentioned, like, that you didn't buy into it a lot. What would you have done differently? Like, I had you on before, and obviously for people that don't know, you're a fantastic wrestler, multiple-time All-American, superstar coming out of high school. So it's not like you're for people that don't know, your athletic career was an amazing success. Because I don't want you to people somehow frame this like somehow it was a disappointment. But nobody goes undefeated. So there's obviously a couple matches you could do over. What would, if you were coaching 21, 19, 20-year-old Mike Poeta, what would you have him focus more on?
Well, for one, I didn't open up that much about, like, the things I was struggling with just like the pressure I was putting on myself, how extreme the nerves were and things like that. I don't think I opened up to coaches enough. And what I really try to do is explain to these kids, like you said, I did have success, but for any wrestler, it's never enough. I mean, you watch the Kerry Colette documentary, and he's throwing silver and bronze medals into a bin that's in a shed, and it's because it was not enough for him. But I really like to relay to them basically how much I struggled with it mentally, but then also still had success, because I know a lot of the kids coming in, every kid wants to be a national champ, but you don't like truly, I guess, believe or know that you belong until you kind of do. So a kid coming in at the end of the day, like, I took second twice and third. So if a kid is going into college going, man, I get to be in the national finals twice, like that's a big deal. Like, that's awesome. And I say to them, guys, when I was bouncing around in the tunnel waiting to wrestle Jordan Burroughs, I wanted the power to go off in the building so bad. Like, please postpone this match just a little bit until I just feel better, feel more ready. But there's no such thing as that. So I think being able to explain to them how nervous I got and the things that were going in my head, it makes it very relatable to them. So I'm very open to them. And then they can, when they're bouncing around, go, oh man, me doubting myself this much or being this nervous, I can still have as much success as I want. And then, like, more of like the visualization and meditation and doing things like that. One, you become more accepting of the nerves and the pressure, and it's there, but it's not as big a deal to you. And then you can still go perform at, an optimal level, a very high level. So I think I don't, maybe just because I didn't ask for it or didn't, I was fake it till you make it. So maybe people didn't think I needed it. But I think I'm just really open with the guys about how nervous I was, and then some strategies to enhance it and make yourself better.
Yeah, I talked to Molinaro a couple of weeks ago, and he talked, the crew there talked about how his idea of how important gratitude is, especially with the idea of COVID and, like, things are taken away from you, and to find something to be grateful for. And I think gratitude or gratefulness leads to relaxation, and relaxation leads to better performance. Because, when you're in great shape, you can wrestle an hour in the room, no problem. And then a 7-minute match, you're exhausted by the beginning of the second period. It's not that you're not in shape. It's nerve management and tension management and these other things. What you said reminds me, just a quick story. When I coached, we had a kid one year that never placed at state in Missouri Class 2, which is almost mathematically impossible to do if you're any good. And he wrestled at a weight with 8 returning All-Americans, and he makes it to the blood round. And, they're hyping, and I just start laughing. I start laughing as loud as I can on purpose. And he looks over at me and he goes, "What's so funny?" And I just keep laughing. He goes, "What's so freaking funny?" And I go, oh, I was just thinking about all those jackwagons that you went to high school with that made fun of you because you never placed at state. In about 10 minutes, you're going to be a college All-American, and they won't be able to say anything to you for the rest of your life. And I get goosebumps because he went out and beat the brakes off this kid. And my dad goes, what did you say to him? I told him, he goes, that worked. I go, apparently, because he just wrestled free. Instead of being scared, he's like, instead of running away from something, you're running towards something.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
sure.
and I think that's, go ahead.
I tell the guys, you should look at this clock and want the time to slow down. Wish you had more time with the guy instead of trying to speed it up and get a takedown and thumb block and run away and pray for the time to run out. You just need different perspectives on stuff. Wish you had more time. Wish the clock went slower.
That specific thing is super interesting because you're right. Like when people have the lead, it's like they can't go quick enough, right? You know, like I've been doing these 1 hour runs and like the last 10 minutes seem like 30, you know, and it's like, you know, but like if you're a buffet, 10 minutes isn't long enough, you know? So anyway,
what you were just saying though really reminds me of Lucas Bird. So
okay,
I think Lucas went out to wrestle. So he had like, he was 7 and maybe he had like, I think he was 17-4 on the season. He had like, okay. So he had 21 matches. 20 of the matches he went out to win the match, to have fun, win the match, give everything he had. And there was one match that he let the nerves get the better of him. And that was the second round against Louis Hayes. And he kind of said to me after that, he's like, I just wasn't having any fun out there. I was putting way too much pressure on myself. So from that point on, he had like 7 more matches left in the tournament. And nothing was about wrestling with me and him. It was all about what you were saying, trying to make your guy laugh. All I was trying to do was tell him jokes, make him laugh. During injury timeouts, I went out and was saying nothing about the match. I was looking up Mitch Hedberg jokes. He's one of my favorite comedians. I was relaying those jokes to him during the break. So like how crazy people probably think I'm in his ear. You got to get tough. You got to get to your single, blah, blah, blah. I was telling him stand-up comedy jokes and he wrestled great. And I'm not taking all the credit, but
no,
you know, I mean, that's what he needed.
He gets all the credit. You get all the credit when you wrestled. The man in the arena gets the credit 100%, but you helped him clear the cobwebs and just go be the best version of Lucas Bird he could be. He's responsible for being the best version of him. We all are. I mean that, and any good coach obviously knows that, you know, but yeah, for sure. So
yeah, our job is to squeeze as much out of them as we can.
Yeah. I was thinking about your guys' program, and it's not at the same stage, so I don't mean this in any way insulting, but I saw Missouri. I came out, and no one, like Missouri was wrestling backups. I mean, I'm sorry, the other team were wrestling backups against Missouri in Big 12 duels. And Brian Smith took over, and that school went from getting shellacked to getting qualifiers, to getting small Americans, to qualifying the whole team, to getting national champions. And the blueprint, you know, it's easier to build a good dual meet team than it is to build a great tournament team because you got to have really at least 4 hammers to be in contention for a team trophy minimum. Where 10 good guys, no holes, you can win a lot of duels. You know, and obviously it's misleading. Like, you know, one guy, you could have 10 rounded 12 guys and one guy win the tournament and that team outplaces them, you know, in the big tournament. But one of the things I saw at the organic level that changed was Missouri high school kids wanting to go to Missouri. You know, that they built a culture, you know, they sort of circled the border, kept most of the good kids in, nobody keeps them all in. You and I have talked about this on the air once and off the air several times. Illinois is so good in high school wrestling. It's arguably, it's clearly in the top 5. You could argue it's 1. If you want to go by college All-Americans, it's probably 2 behind PA. Freestyle and Greco, it's 1. You know, California's, I mean, you know, we all know who's good. I mean, in this year alone, I think Illinois high school had a national champion and 7 All-Americans. And if you just think if you added all those guys' points up, how good that team would be, I'm pretty sure it would have got a trophy. What do you got to do to keep these kids, keep the hammers in state?
One, we need to make the program more exciting. And for one, Illinois kids, the mecca of wrestling, and this might even go beyond like when they're done. They could wrestle in college and do great at the NCAAs. They could wrestle at the Olympics, but growing up, nothing gives us a feeling like looking at the State Farm Center where our state tournament is. So for one, we're moving the competitions into there. So we're going to make the actual live experience way better for the fans, for our own guys. They're going to feel more like professionals, kind of take more pride in where they're competing at.
All right, Tim, I want to make sure I explain this to people. The State Farm Center is on the University of Illinois campus. It's where the state tournament is held, and it has not been the place where you've been holding dual meets. Is that correct?
Correct. So okay. Just moving it into basically making the experience for the fans and our guys at a level that's more on the same playing field as the best teams across the country. We need to do things like, not to like get too cheesy, but we need alternative singlets. We need a really cool, flashy singlet for some duels for a round at the Big Tens or NCAAs. We need to 15 to 18-year-olds, they like flashy, they like bells and whistles, and that's what the kids need to see. I think maybe we need like more of a social media presence, and we need to cater more towards those kids. And for lack of a better word, we need to be cooler. We need to be a little cooler.
Yeah. Somebody said to me one time that when you're recruiting, you're only selling two things: results or hope. And this person had never actually recruited anybody a day in his life. So it was really interesting to me that he was so cleanly and succinctly sum up. That's what it is. I remember like at Merrimack, and we'd have like a couple All-Americans and take 15th every year. And we made a decision. We raised a bunch of money. My dad was actually holding it out, so I was the head coach. I'm like, let's win now. And we spent this money and recruited because they gave us basically no scholarships. And we had to tell these guys, like, look, the only reason we're not good right now is because we didn't get you. And the only reason we didn't get you is because we didn't have any money. But we can coach. We coached a bunch of guys who weren't very good and made them good. Give us a chance to coach these good guys and we'll make them great. And it worked. You know, with the first year we did it, we had 3 national champions, scored 120 points, that kind of thing, you know. And you know, it's like being a potter. The better clay you get, the better it turns out, right? You know, winning a horse race with a bunch of Clydesdales is the wrong way to go. So, you know, with that in mind, you're going to bring in another coach, right? An assistant coach. And I tried to pick your brain on who was going to be, and you played your cards close to the vest, and I appreciate that. I can respect that. I've heard a couple names, but I you know, that's between you. I would never put your business out on the street. But more so, what are the characteristics are you looking for? Like recruiting, fundraising, film study, workout partner. Which of those are you prioritizing, in what order and why?
Well, I'm prioritizing the wrestling aspect of it. Being able to wrestle with the guys, how good they are technically, being able to sit down and watch film with guys. For me, it's more on the development side. We have other guys between myself. Brian Medlin is phenomenal at the things that he does, and that's a little more behind the scenes. And the guy that I want coming in can do all the wrestling stuff. He's a big name. He's going to be a big draw for recruits. So more wrestling side of it.
Not too worried as much about the fundraising and recruiting part, or by his name, he'll help with recruiting. Is that a fair way to say it?
No, I think by his name, and he'll be in the passenger seat or the back seat, but along the way, but that doesn't have to be completely in his wheelhouse. He could potentially learn. But I want someone more on the development of the wrestler side.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts about how, like you and I have talked a lot about just recruits on and off the air, a couple kids specifically that I've been involved in. And I will say this, and you know, nobody asked me to, you're super honest about your money being stacked up and, you know, because of this extra year. And a lot of guys will not tell you the truth. Like, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get them in. And it's like, well, you kind of know somebody's getting cut. You know, if there's $10 already spread out, you're going to give me too. A bunch of guys are losing 50 cents, you know, something like that. Oh. What was your thought about the guys getting the extra year, and how good have you had to be at becoming like a fantasy football salary cap expert? And especially now, because it's even more, I wouldn't say difficult for you, but maybe more challenging for you because you were the assistant coach and you didn't probably 100% have to worry about that. And now you got to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I'm appreciative that Hef let me do. Hef really let me take the reins on a lot of that.
Oh,
And
okay.
what I felt we should offer kids and kind of managing the years of scholarships. So he gave me some free reign and he was trying to prep me for this moment. Yeah, what the 6 year did was it made it tough for college coaches, but who it really affected is the like sophomore, junior, and seniors in high school. These poor kids. I mean, money just disappeared on them.
Yeah.
The kind of like the best like way for kids to line up. You come in, you redshirt, there's a 5th-year senior there. You get a year with him, he graduates, and then you wrestle. So now it started overlapping a lot of kids. Money became not available. So it really, really hurt those kids. And I feel for those kids. And a lot of people like have the mentality like, oh, just go and if you're going to win a national title, you can beat out who's there. But like, when I was getting recruited, if someone told me, okay, you and Alex Terapelli are going to overlap for 3 seasons, I'd be like, well, yeah, I want to win a national title. And I think I could eventually beat him, but I don't want that to be my whole career at Illinois. It's just trying to fight to beat the guy that was running in the finals. So it kind of hurt a lot of those kids. And yeah, I would never overpromise and underdeliver money wise. For a kid coming in. And then at the same time, I would never have the mentality, like you said, of trying to like squeeze as much money out from other people, because those are the kids that have committed to our team. They're on our team. I'm never going to take a one step back in them being great and successful because I go, oh, they might not make it. So hopefully they're gone and I can have this money for someone else. Absolutely not. Every kid that's on our team, all of us coaches are going to put everything into them, not, oh, they might not make it, so let's get on another kid because that money will be there later. Like, no, that's never how I'll be.
All the points are great, but the point you made about the class of 22, 23, 24, like, obviously they did this with all sports, not just wrestling. And like, I love all sports. I don't know. I don't talk to you a lot about if you're like a college football fan at all or not, but like, Joe Burrow a year ago has maybe the greatest statistical collegiate season his senior year. He went from being like maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick to #1 guy in the draft. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was like an $18 million difference. Obviously, wrestling doesn't swim in those waters, but there's a lot of these kids, like California canceled the state tournament. Illinois has got some terrible semblance of a season that, frankly, a lot of good kids aren't even wrestling in because like it's just a bunch of dual meets and then that's it. And these kids that were developing, these kids that were improving, it's hard for them to be seen. And you guys have to recruit the least amount of risk and you got less money. Like you can't even take a flyer right now. So it's like, it's going to take a couple years for this all to shake out where it kind of gets back to normal, right?
Well, it's going to be like 4 or 5 years. Cause not like even this junior, like the junior class that we're looking at and where like money is like super scarce. It's because you have 6 classes on the books for the next 4 or 5 years. So as I mean, everyone knows this, as guys are graduating, it opens up money for the next kid coming in. But like that money is like, it doesn't open up anymore because guys are on it. And those are your guys that you already have. It's going to be their best years, their last year. When they're 24, they're going to be better than 18. So it's the money's not dropping off and the money really isn't there for the kids coming in. And what's funny is the 2 states that you brought up, California and Illinois. So the 2 states that really got impacted, in my opinion, the two of the better states that are not having a state tournament. So we have Maximo Renteria coming in, 3-time state champ, could have won his 4th this year, not having a state tournament. We have Dylan Connell from Illinois coming in, 3-time state champ, did not have a chance to win his 4th. So I feel for these kids so much, like in that aspect. Now
that's some legend stuff.
Forget money or anything else like that. To be in the record book as a 4-time state champ, California, you're the 4th one ever. Illinois is such a tough state. It doesn't happen very often. So I really, really feel for those kids. And in my mind, they're 4-time state champs. So, and if I'm like Dylan Connell, they're having a little, the IWO, the Illinois Wrestling Coaches and Association is having like a mini state tournament. They're trying to give it for the kids. And I'm like, Dylan, you win that. Call yourself a 4-time state champ. Absolutely. That's a title that I 99% of the time you're going to have. And it stinks that you can't. So go win that thing.
Yeah, like in college, like that year they got taken away, like, like Taylor Lujan was the #1 seed at that way.
Yeah.
And I'm just picking him as an example because he'd never been an All-American, you know, and he was the #1 seed. And that's when Zahid couldn't wrestle. And it looked like he was, anything can happen at the tournament, obviously, but he's a pretty clear favorite. And he gets to call himself an All-American. I'm glad the NWCA did that. But you talk about the financial loss of being able to say you're a national champion for the rest of your life, especially as a one-timer, right? Like a one-timer saying I was an All-American versus a national champion is completely different. I mean, I won 3 state titles, but I lost my freshman year. I wasn't that good. I lost fair and square. And I can only imagine, like, if I'd won 3 and then the 4th one just gets kind of ripped out from underneath you. And again, I think people go, oh, we should have bigger goals. Well, I'm also 18, and this was kind of important at the time too,
Well, at that time, it's the most important.
And that was my goal. Like that was that kid's goal, to be a 4-time state champion and then go chase national titles and Olympic medals and things like that. So one last thing, I see you and Medlin a ton, like at the age group events, under 20s, under 23s, and obviously Medlin's done a great job in the Greco side of things. There's this whole balancing act between working on folk style stuff in the off season, working on collegiate wrestling versus guys wrestling and getting competition, even if it's not in the exact same style, or if it's in Greco, clearly a very different version of wrestling. I'm sure it's case to case. Some kids don't need to compete. We just need to get them better at riding and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's other kids, like the way that this kid learns the best is by competing and figuring it out. But in general, are you more encouraging of guys staying it back and just training, or are you more encouraging of guys competing?
I don't know if I just have like an old school mentality and I just have kept it the same and not evolved, but I've always been like, all right, when school starts in September, it's all folk style until the season ends in March. And then once March ends, now it's all freestyle. It's freestyle throughout the spring and the summer. And yeah, I think it's important for the guys to go to the tournament we just had, the under 23s next month, because I mean, it's just look at the data. I mean, those are the guys that are winning the national titles. So I think it's really important to continue training for those major freestyle things.
And I think if you get guys on that world team, that's where they can really jump levels, right? Because they're training at the OTC, they got like a Kevin Jackson, pouring extra effort into them. And then they're also around all these other guys that are on the same path as they are. Again, I'm from Missouri. They had 3 kids make the under 20 team, and one of them's not even their starter. And it's and he's really good. I mean, he had some injuries and some other stuff, but I mean, he didn't actually start this year. I mean, he's from my area. Give a quick shout out to Colton Hawks. He did a great job, but him seeing himself maybe as a backup to chance to be a junior world or, under 20 world champion, like they always say, there's levels to this game. And I mean, that talk about leveling up, that's the way to do it in a hurry.
Well, and you're absolutely right about the training camp. So with Isaiah Martinez being here, even if you're let's say a 25 to 41 pounder or 97 and heavy, you don't wrestle with him, but you see what a national champ does. And you go, okay, that's the recipe. I see what Isaiah is doing. He won it. And now I have the answer. Now I have the formula. So you go out to a training camp at Colorado Springs, and you see Dake, Burroughs, Oliver, Jaden Cox, Snyder, all you go, okay.
Everybody. Yeah.
That's what they're doing. No, okay, I know now. I know. You still got to do it, but at least it validates your training, I guess, and confirms it.
It confirms it. And also, I think it maybe takes it from this super pedestal. The guy did literally put one shoe on at a time,
Yeah.
And he doesn't always feel great in practice either. And he pushes through, and he actually loses in practice sometime. Gary Mayab was on, I think last week or the week before, and he said that they had studied. I thought this was fascinating, that you should fail in practice between 17 and 28% of the time, I think. Those, that if you're not failing, you're failing too much, you're obviously getting beat. And if you're not failing at all, you're not trying new things, or let's say I always know an ankle pick works on you hypothetically, so that's all I ever do. Well, neither one of us are getting any better. I need to take that move away from me. And I think all those kind of high level mindsets and that advanced training, and then guys just putting different hands on you and getting different looks, to me, that's the biggest advantage when you make those teams, you know, along with just being surrounded by excellence.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time. I just kind of wanted to give you the last minute or two to just kind of put out the mission statement for Illinois and like tell people why they should come out to a meet, why they should, you know, financially support your RTC, like, you know, what kind of brand of wrestling is going to be a little bit different. Basically, just give you the floor.
Well, I think our reputation as a school academically, our reputation as in the community, the character of our kids. I think it's a place that it's a program you want to be part of, especially for anybody that has felt like, all right, Illinois has lost some of those, I guess, can't miss Illinois kids, and we are a powerhouse state. Yeah, our RTC is very important to that. You need some of the best senior level guys in Champaign training with our guys, and so financially, fundraising is really important. And I think we as a program, like, scoring points has to be everything to us. Like, we can't hang on to leads. We have to have a very exciting, high scoring, kind of like identity to our program. And I want our wrestling to speak for itself. And then that's how we're going to get the people in the stands.
I remember when I interviewed you, I think it was a couple of years ago, and we've been friends for a while. I knew you really through Matt Collum and Medlin and those guys. And shout out to Matt, he watches every week. So what dawned on me about you in Illinois was like, you were so passionate about Illinois. You're like, why would anybody want to go anywhere else? You're like, when I came out, that's all I wanted to go, you know. And now kids have so many more choices, and you know, it's so much easier to, you know, with, you know, you can do tours of places like on your phone, you know, it's like, and everybody's getting recruited earlier and earlier, even though they're not getting recruited, you know, like, but you love Illinois. You don't just love the state of Illinois, you love the University of Illinois. So if it just comes down to love and working hard, you guys are going to be awesome. You know.
Well, thank you. No, you answered that better than I did. You kind of put me on the spot, kind of throwing it out there. You did a very good job with that. Thank you. But yes, it's I like bleed orange and blue. I love this school so much. I love the experience that I had. And if kids can come here and I was a three-time All-American. If guys can come here and be national champs, All-Americans, have the experience that I had, leave with the degree that I had. I mean, we're one of the top 30 schools in the world. I think that we did our job. And as like I've always kind of said, and that when you don't coach at your alma mater, you kind of have like one toe, like always dipped in that school. It's kind of on your mind. You're kind of thinking about it. But being an Illinois guy, like this 100% of my love and passion is here. I could not care less about any other school. I don't have an alma mater that I'm still getting emails for and still a little curious about how their football team is maybe doing. No, yeah. It's all Illinois. This is where my complete heart is in this place.
You can't finish on any better note than that. I'm lucky I get to interview my friends, you know, and I consider you a friend. So on a personal note, just congratulations. I know you're ready. I know you'll do a great job. And Illinois is in good hands. For all the people watching and listening, we appreciate your support. For Mike Poeta, I'm David Mercatani. We'll talk to you next week.